which is Getting Noticed, Taking Your Before and After School Program to the Next Level, hosted by Eleyo. We're excited to have all of you join for what hopefully will be an insightful webinar for you. We'll be recording this webinar and sending out the slides to all the attendees within a week. We've actually muted all of the attendees to keep the audio quality as high as possible. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please type them in the chat box or the question box on the GoToWebinar application. And we'll address those questions at the end if we have time. We're excited to partner with Michelle Pina of the Texas Afterschool Association. She's actually the president of TAA. And so with that, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jeff, and good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and very excited to join Eleyo and all of you for today's topic. We're starting a brand new school year, and so now there's no time like the present to think about where do we want to take our program to the next, how we're going to take our program to the next level. So as you read in the description, we're going to be covering a few topics for today, and all of these will be just some ideas and things to get you thinking on how can you take your program to the next level. We'll be looking at first the whole child, then going outside of that center of life, and then going into how we can build family, school, and community relationships that will enhance our program. Then looking at our staff and what we can do on their behalf and our own behalf as professionals. And then the last component will be looking at how technology can take our programs to the next level. So again, my name is Michelle Pina, and in addition to volunteering for the Texas Afterschool Association, I do several other things. A little bit of my background is a former classroom teacher in rural Oklahoma, then transitioned into the out-of-school time world about 12 years ago, and worked with a school district operating their self-sustaining fee-based program. A little bit after that, getting started and learning the ins and outs of operations and management and personnel, assisted some other school districts in Texas to get their fee-based programs up and running, and they're all doing very well. And then also did a little bit of work with the Harris County Department of Education in Houston on some research initiatives on studying the social return on investment at a citywide level on out-of-school time programming, and then also looking at the inputs that programs need to have in place so that you have a high quality program that's yielding the best outputs for the work that we do. So we'll go ahead and dive right into the four topics. So step one, again, we want to focus on the child, be the center of what we do and who we're about. That's one thing that I thoroughly enjoy about working with this profession is we all have the child in the forefront of our minds, and when we're planning and when we're making decisions, we want to do the best that we can for those children. So the first thing you want to keep in mind is making sure that you have programs that stimulate imaginations and expose students to opportunities that they probably would never have had under a normal setting. And again, one of the things that I enjoy about out-of-school time programs is that we have the freedom to do so much. Even if we are those programs that are grant funded and we're always searching, on how to sustain, we still have the creativity to do what our students are going to enjoy the most. And that's why we serve. So we need to make sure that we keep them in mind. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure that their voice is part of the designing and the planning and the instruction of those activities in the out-of-school time. So hold on just a second, my slide, there we go. Got froze a little bit. So easy steps to do this. Everyone is familiar with the regular surveys that we do. This is the standard in our industry of how do we make sure that we do have youth voice. And whether you do these every semester, whether you do these once a year, there's always that data that you can collect on student surveys, whether it's a satisfaction survey or asking them what would you like to see and do in the future. Taking that one step further is actually engaging youth in conversations and facilitating discussions about what they would like to see their programs be about. And this comes in the form of a youth advisory council. So you can do those. Again, it's just taking it one step further on how do you incorporate their voice and making sure that they're participating in the work that we do. Based on those voices that you hear, that's when you can start to make some adjustments in your program. And this is allowing for students to actually have a choice, whether that's you have different reading activities during the reading hour. It's not just everybody's doing the same thing. It could be restructuring how your classes flow so that perhaps you have interest driven rather than just age group driven. And again, those choices are based on the input that your student advisory council or your surveys have given you. The next step, taking it to that higher level, are creating leadership roles for students, putting them in positions where they're making decisions on perhaps where their service learning project, who's going to benefit from it. It's allowing them to engage with adults that can help them make those decisions and be a part of a bigger community than just their after-school program. You could also have students participate in peer mentorship programs. So maybe having your middle school students working with kindergartners, whether that's reading, either they're being read to or they read to the younger students, being a junior counselor or a junior teacher's assistant. So just getting them involved in something that they can feel proud of. So the second thing you want to think about when looking at creating the ideal curriculum or the ideal setting for the whole child is collaborating with other agencies. And when we look at the whole child, that's a lot for one staff member to take into account. So I'd like for each of you to think about a student in your program, one that stands out, either one that you're looking forward to seeing this coming year or one that has left and gone on to another program. But that child, keep them in your mind and think about them and their experiences within your program in these following areas. So the first one is, how is that child healthy? And what are we doing as a program to ensure that they're healthy? And if we are doing some things, then what can we do beyond what we're doing? So for health, for example, sure, we're giving them a nutritious snack, but is there something we could be doing to teach that child about nutrition, or perhaps the family about improving eating habits or eating more green vegetables? So the second area is safe. And of course, the very first thing when it comes to licensing or to just a safe and secure environment is, yes, we want to have rooms free of hazards. We want to make sure that everybody's handling food properly, but we also want to think about the emotional safety of the child. So again, think back to that child that you have in your mind, and was there something that they went through this past school year, whether at home or whether in the school day? Was it something that we could have done a little bit more to help them? And so for each of the following areas, making sure that the whole child, that they're engaged in their activities, that they feel supported, and then the last, that they're challenged. So think about that one child, and could you have engaged them a little bit more? Could they have been supported in some other way other than what you currently were able to do? And were they challenged in the activities that you brought to the table? And all these things are important, not to say that this is something we have to push ourselves to, but this is where you collaborate with other agencies to help bring in either training for your staff, resources, just to get some new ideas, because it's hard for us as out of school time to be everything to every child. So we want to make sure that the school culture and the curriculum and our instructional strategies are meeting the whole child. and making sure that critical thinking is involved, that there's social, emotional wellness that's being cared for, that our curriculum is comprehensive and challenging, and then also that we have reliable information to make sure that we're meeting the children's needs. So here are a couple examples of some programs across the country that are working with other agencies, so far as having multiple programs within one campus, having a very strong volunteer network within a city, that everyone is focused on that. And these are programs and these are collaborations that can't happen alone. It does require reaching out and saying, these are the needs of our children and how can you help with us? So step 2, building our family and community relationships and taking them to the next level. So one of the things about our relationships with our families in the out of school time world is we're often the ones that see and greet and talk to the parents more than the school day. We see them every day. We see them maybe even twice a day when the students are dropped off and picked up. We really get some insight into the family and the community and what's going on, and that's a valuable role for us to have. So how do we nurture that role with our parents? One, it's yes, to be there for them when they just need someone to listen to. If they may be late picking up and they need to make some other arrangements, those are simple things that we could do. Here are some 4 things that you might want to consider also doing with your parents. Make sure that you are sharing with them about your activities that you're planning and your overall goal of your program and what are you striving for. The other thing is to share resources with them. If you start to hear some conversations among parents about things that they're struggling with, again, going back to collaborating with other agencies, find some resources that you can share with them, either in a newsletter, pamphlets that you can put out as they walk in and wait for the child to come, or have a quiet conversation with that parent and say, here, I thought you might find this useful. And this is also something that can be used when you do your parent engagement or parent nights. The second thing is to be sure that we're adapting our language. Out of school time professionals, we play a lot of roles. We're a police officer, we're a nurse, we're a counselor, we're a mediator, we're the business manager, and we're the marketing team. So be sure that when you are talking to parents or you are talking to someone in the community, that keep the jargon, the educational jargon or the out of school time jargon to a minimum, and then also be careful that we're not speaking to our students as we would, or speaking to our parents as we would a student. And also working with our staff in that way too, that there is an appropriate language for an appropriate time. The third thing is to have more than just a hello and a goodbye and how are you doing. Engage family in discussions about how their child is doing. If you're seeing their child progress in something, or they're coming out of their shell, or they're making new friends, share those good moments with families and talk to them about why this might be happening, and they may give you some insight as to what's going on at home as well. Then the last thing is encourage their participation. And yes, parents are very busy, and some it's very difficult to find time out of their busy schedules to be a part of the program. But again, going back to the point that we see our parents more than even the school day. So there are, if they could, they probably would step in and say, yes, I would love to come and read to a group of kids, or I have this hobby. I would love to share and talk to the kids about basket weaving or shipbuilding or model cars. So in those discussions, find out what they enjoy and try and incorporate it in that program. So moving on to the school, we want to be sure that positive behavior management, that we are providing some consistency, because in order to have students that are engaged and that feel safe and feel supported, behavior management is key to that. And one of the things that, and this may be a little bit harder for programs that are not in the school setting, but it's not to say that this can't be done for you as well. Because first, you want to find out what is going on in the school, What are their expectations? What are their values? What are their goals? And again, if this is a non-school-based program, it may take a little bit more research, reaching out to the surrounding schools that feed into your programs, but it's definitely something to consider when you're structuring or restructuring your own behavior management program for your staff and your students. So when aligning with the school or schools, you want to be sure that you understand their vision and that they understand yours. And you'll probably find some overlapping concepts in the vision and overlapping goals. The second thing is to make sure that there's some team effort, that you're extending the offer for them to come visit your staff meetings or your trainings and vice versa. And then taking that even further is collaborating. Perhaps there's going to be a new initiative when it comes to behavior management or positive behavior reinforcement, and that's something that both the after-school program and the school day could share the cost for bringing in that trainer. Another way to look at collaborating is talking with small teams, whether within your program or with those in the school day, is having the deeper conversations about the students who might need more homework, who needs some extra attention because something is going on at home. Start to talk about the emotional care of the students, not just homework, not just academics, but the whole child. When focusing on the students themselves, sit down with staff and find out how can y'all figure out a little bit more about those children that you're serving. What is it that might be bothering them? What is it that you wish you knew about the students, and how can you creatively find out more about the students, become more engaged with them? The other thing when regarding students, is this is for our own staff, is talk about how we can be more compassionate and open up the conversation, the avenues for conversation with students. Again, we need to know what matters to them. We need to show that they mean something to us and that they do deserve personal attention. One small trick that staff could work on for this year is having more what you call chair-to-chair or knee-to-knee conversations. And this is where a staff member actually sits down face-to-face and just gives that child one-on-one time. And again, whether it's two chairs facing each other or they're sitting on the floor or in bean bags and their knees are together, but that child knows that they're the focus of somebody's attention just for a few minutes of that day. And then the last component of behavior management is talking with the parents and having truly honest conversations with them. And yes, of course, you want to have comments and give examples of when things went really, really well. And of course, there's going to be those unfortunate times when we may have to have that honest conversation about exactly the student wasn't having a great day. But instead of being summative, be very specific. That way the parent understands and realizes that you are paying attention, you are trying to help the child. And always remember that creating an honest and direct conversation will ensure that there is no misinterpretation. Don't leave things for people to assume. So the last part for the second step of taking your program to a higher level is engaging with your volunteers. And some programs have volunteers as a group that comes in and reads to a group of students. Volunteers are even sometimes the staff that actually work with the students on a daily basis. In some organizations, their volunteers are limited to their parent advisory board or their board of directors or their advisory board for their programs. But either way, no matter what type of volunteer you have or you're hoping to have with your program, these are some things to keep in mind. Be sure that your vision is something that you can articulate quickly and succinctly. Communicate as much as possible by any means possible, and making sure that all your volunteers are up to date, especially with those that are in those leadership positions for your program. Be sure that everybody knows what's expected of them and that there is something for them to do when they show up. Oftentimes, one thing that you hear about volunteers is they get frustrated because they're either standing around, they don't get the call back, they're not sure what they're supposed to be working on. So be sure to have all of those things outlined very thoroughly before they arrive. Another thing to do is to engage with the community, is talk to companies and businesses about their matching programs. Oftentimes companies will allow days for their employees to go volunteer somewhere, or they will match either in kind or financially based on how many hours the employees volunteer. So take a look, see what's out there in your community, talk to your parents and see if their employers have such programs, and if they don't, maybe this is something that could get started in your neighborhood and your children could benefit from that. All right, so step 3, now we're focusing on ourselves and we're focusing on our staff. And oftentimes this is something that's often overlooked when it comes to managing programs. We forget about us and we forget about ourselves and how do we keep ourselves refreshed and going. We're always emphasizing the need to be evolving and engage our students and engage our parents, but we also have to be engaging, we have to engage ourselves and our staff as well. So one of the things to do this is joining a professional organization. So an example, like I said earlier, I volunteer for the Texas Afterschool Association. I'm a member of the National Afterschool Association, and it's something that keeps me energized. It keeps me connected with what's going on, both legislatively, quality, professional development, and just resources abound. So not to say that just out-of-school time organizations are the ones that you should seek out. It would even be advisable to go and look at other organizations, education-based, health services, social work. Perhaps there's some community organizations, maybe even the Chamber of Commerce. These are all different types of organizations that can provide so many resources and so many new partners and more insight into what you do, and gives a better understanding to the community of the role you play. So going back to just the out-of-school time professional organization specifically, the purpose is that you can stay focused on the quality and how to create a quality program. So many tools are out there, keeping abreast on public policy, and then also any current issues that are affecting young children and youth. The different types of participants, frontline staff, mid-management, researchers, the participants are wide and varied, and we can learn so much from each other. And that's one thing that is wonderful about what we're seeing in the out-of-school time world, is that researchers are connecting with practitioners, and the things that are being studied, that yes, this does yield high impact programs, we can easily take that and implement it without any problem. And the sectors, that's another aspect that being part of a professional organization gives you access to. So if you are a school-based program, there's some amazing things that are going on out in the community and some great partners when it comes to nonprofits, private providers. There's just so much to learn from each other. And instead of recreating the wheel, we can easily borrow ideas from each other. So now focusing on ourselves, there's different ways on what we have to do as directors or as managers. We play multiple roles. And those roles are manager, mentor, and community supporter. In every scenario, it's going to be different, and we have to adjust how we manage the people below us, beside us, above us. And so what this means is that we have to embrace a broader perspective, and we have to be able to move from one type of management style to the other. So the first thing we want to do is be sure that we're supporting our employees by giving them resources to improve themselves, spend time with them, just like we're asking them to spend time with our students. And then, of course, sometimes we have to be the ones to make those tough decisions. One other thing also is working with our staff to be more of a supporter, and be a supporter of our families, be a supporter of our communities. Be sure that we're not breaking down the families, even though families may do things a little differently, and we know based on research that some comments can have some negative actions on our students. We really want to stay neutral, and we want to be that mentor for our staff so that we can teach them that we need to have truthful and open conversations with our parents, but at the same time, we don't want to come down and be biased or be negative. So we just want to be sure that we're staying positive and guiding the way for our staff and going back to being a visionary director. One other thing that we could do as leaders, and again, this is kind of tying back to community and our families, is being an advocate for our programs. And sometimes for out-of-school time professionals, this can be a little tricky, especially if we're a federally funded program or we're a school-based program. Our hands are tied in exactly what we can say or do. So when it comes to advocacy, there are some things that are allowable. It's fine to send an email out to your community letting them know about what's going on with funding or the lack thereof. It's perfectly fine to invite elected officials, whether these are your congressman, your mayor, your city council members, or your board of trustees. Definitely ask them to come and visit your program and see the good things that are going on. And also invite them to participate in special events. And one that's coming up here in October, it's plenty of time to start planning, is the Lights On After School on October 26th. This is a national day of out-of-school time recognition put on by the After School Alliance. So if you're not already participating, I encourage you to visit their site. And there's a whole planning kit you can download, posters you can order, and just a slew of other resources to get your program noticed. So now we're at our last discussion for today's webinar on how to bring your program to a higher level this year, and that's utilizing technology to engage your community. There's so many gadgets and apps and programs that students are using, and information is just at our fingertips, and so yes, we have to keep up with that as well. So in order to engage both your parents and your students, here's a couple of suggestions that are out there. And one is messaging your parents, whether it's a reminder of what to bring for the field trip the next day, that you have a water main break and you're not going to have water for the last 2 hours of programming. You know, these examples of these apps, Blooms, Eleyo, Remind, or Parent Square. These are all easily accessible apps that you can use and share them with your parents. And it's easy just to have them opt in on their registration card, or you can send them a one-time message and they can opt in. So definitely something that's easy, whether you want to use this at the administrative level or even use this at the classroom level. Another idea for technology are using online portfolios so that students can capture their projects, their progress on their things, and you can share these with parents. School day classrooms are starting to use these all the time. Why not after school programs as well? So two online portfolios that are worth taking a look at are called Seesaw. The other one is Bulb, and I hope that you guys find these useful in engaging students and parents in a different way. So the other aspect to using technology to your advantage and to have a high quality program is having the tools and resources so that you are effectively managing your programs, so that you can deliver the best customer service, that you're efficiently using your funds and resources to provide the programming to your students, that you're there to provide resources to your parents, that parents feel comfortable in talking to you and your staff. And one of the things that can help this is making sure that you have a student management program that eliminates a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the reporting, and you have things at your fingertips, because we're providing all these resources to our families, we're providing these resources to our students. There's definitely some great resources that are out there for us as program managers. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joe Hickey with Eleyo, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about how you can use Eleyo to enhance your program through technology as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. Very nice. So I'm Joe Hickey. I'm part of the business development group here at Eleyo, and I'm going to go through a few slides here that are just going to kind of help demonstrate some of the technology that Eleyo offers to our customers. Now, some of you may have already kind of gone through this or seen some of this, so hopefully you find some new nuggets in here. For those that are new, hopefully this will be a good kind of brief overview or a brief look in on some of the things that Eleyo offers. So with that said, here are kind of the few items I'm going to go through, kind of the easy online registration, the convenient family portal, flexible scheduling, iPad attendance app, and some dynamic reporting. These are all things that we find and we're passionate about to help districts or communities become more efficient and ease of use through technology. So the first one here, Eleyo provides an easy online registration. This is important because we're seeing about 60% of our customers' families sign on through their iPhones or their iPads, tablets. So that's about half of, or more than half of the registers that are coming in. So if that's not available to your communities, then you could be missing out on a large chunk of possible people that make it easier for them to come on board or register or change their schedules or whatnot. So, and also it's a 24-hour deal. So I think a lot of the times we envision registering through a desktop computer when in reality it could be at a field, it could be at night, whenever is most convenient for their families. So this is something that's very important to us. Something else that's very important to us is the convenient family portal. Now this page within the system, as many of you know, and some of you hopefully will find out, is quite a cornerstone for families to navigate their profiles, to go through their schedule, to change things. And in the world of Amazon and Uber, this is extremely important that that families can get into this page quickly, get what they want, get answers out of the system without having to go through the administrative level. So to have this page be kind of the I guess the backbone of everything that's going on is really important to us, and I think we spend a lot of time on getting feedback from our current customers on how this can become even better. So along with that, flexibility is key. In order for there to be a smooth transition, there needs to be flexibility, and obviously as district leaders, you guys know that the flexibility is one thing that you want to offer to your communities to help engage your community. So we work hard with our customers to create an environment within your policies that you already have to then offer this and pass this along. So with the ease of registration, the family portal, the flexibility kind of all stacks up to make it the most user-friendly. And then on top of that, kind of the add-on here with our iPad attendance app, this would allow families to sign in and sign out on the app in real time, which would allow to have a timestamp that would then pass any kind of late fees down, any late pickups, and it really helps to eliminate walls or barriers when asking for money. It would automatically go to the next billing cycle so that there's not this awkward exchange. Often within these site staff areas, the site staff people are very familiar with the families. There's a friendship. So just to kind of help have a system that has the technology to break down some of those barriers, those communication, that it can all just go through the system and nobody has to worry about any kind of those other conversations that need to take place. And then finally, on top of that, it's just gathering information. How do we have the information that within the system? How do we get this information and then pull out what we need in real time and quickly? Eleyo is very passionate about our reporting, our ability to find information that you need within the system and use it efficiently within the program so that you can make adjustments or change things. So within our reporting, we like to really make this a cornerstone. And this is actually one of our higher marks with a lot of our customers. Hopefully you guys feel that way. We're very happy with it and we continue to build upon it. So any kind of information that you can pull out of it, we'd like to know about. So if you have any more questions, I would love to answer them. If you guys have any questions about if you have the current system and you're not using it the right way, I'd love to talk to you about that. If you're new and want to hear more, I'd be happy to walk through some of that with you as well. So with that said, I'll pass it back to, I believe, Michelle to kind of close up, and we can answer some questions.
Sure thing. Thanks, Joe. So like I said, today's webinar, we touched on 4 components on how to take your program to a higher level. Just highlighted a few ideas for each of those steps on how to create an environment for the whole child, building and sustaining relationships, making professional development a priority, and then leveraging technology. You know, of course, there's so many ideas out there. These were just a few that we wanted to highlight today. Perhaps we'll do some other webinars diving deeper on each of those areas. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us. And on the presentation, you'll see that there's some resources that are linked to the topics that I talked about today. So, you know, if you want to, look at the background on everything, you've got the resources at your fingertips. So thank you, everybody, for joining today.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Joe, for your insight on all this. And to all of you who attended, obviously, we greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. We'll be sending the slides along with the recording of the webinar to you within the week, so you have that at your fingertips along with this resource section here to hopefully learn more about ways to kind of get your program to the next level. You have Joe and Michelle's information should you have further questions, but once again, thanks for joining, and have a great rest of the day.